John 1:29. Altera die videt Johannes Jesum venientem ad se, et ait ecce agnus Dei, qui tollit peccatum mundi. On the next day, John sees Jesus coming toward him, and he says, that is John the Baptist, "Behold," or "Look, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world." Now the evangelist is continuing on to subsequent events. We're done with the delegation from Jerusalem and John's responses to them. And our first phrase here is a classic and classical one. This is a great and very common and popular way to say next day or on the next day in Latin. And there's a number of other ways to say this, which I just thought I would share with you. Postero die, on the next day. Postridie, proximo die. Insequenti die. All of these are variants of the same idea. You'll notice that sometimes the word dies is masculine and sometimes it's feminine. The word switches back and forth between the genders, partly based on usage and partly based idiosyncratically on the particular choices of an author. In the classical period, usually it's feminine when it's referring to a specific or set day, but there are lots of exceptions as well. Altera die, on the next day, videt Johannes Jesum. John sees Jesus. Venientem, agreeing with Jesum in the accusative. This is our present active participle from venio, venire. Ad se. Here we have our reflexive pronoun. We haven't seen much of this so far, but it's a very useful one to know. The reflexive pronoun, you'll remember, always refers back to the subject of the sentence. I shouldn't say always because there are exceptions, especially in the Vulgate, but here at least it's following the typical rule that it refers back to, it bends back, that's the meaning of this word, to the subject. Et ait, this word here is very frequently used in Latin of all periods. More often, it introduces indirect speech rather than direct speech outside of the Vulgate, but it's easy just to remember that it means the same thing as inquit or dicit. In this period, they're all often used interchangeably. And then we get this wonderful, justly famous phrase, ecce agnus Dei. Apologies to all of our ecclesiastical listeners here. I know it must grate on your ears to hear agnus Dei instead of agnus Dei, but you can say it however you please. You have my permission. Ecce agnus Dei qui tollit peccatum mundi. You will have heard this, I'm sure, in so many different wonderful musical settings. It's an important part of the liturgy in the Roman Catholic Church, in some Protestant churches, and in the Western Rite of the Orthodox Church. So many Christians in many different times are used to hearing this quotation constantly. The only thing we want to pick out about it in particular grammatically, first of all, notice peccatum mundi. This is following the Greek. It's singular, the sin, the collective sin of the world, though we're more used to seeing peccata, the sins of the world. And I want to point out to you, tollit. This is from a verb that has some irregularities in it. Tollo, tollere, but then sustuli, and finally sublatum. So that's a verb just to watch out for with those irregular forms. They're fun to use. Once you've seen them enough times, you won't have trouble with them. You'll recognize them.